All right, good afternoon, everybody. Maybe we can start the presentation by Jesse from Falmouth University regarding the BA and the MA program. All right, so we are glad to have Jesse here today, and the show is yours.
Good afternoon. It's morning for me. It's still a little bit murky here, so sorry. It's a little bit, the lighting's all a little bit gloomy. But yes, I'm going to whittle through this presentation because hopefully you will have had a chance to watch the video, which was about half an hour long, which is essentially this presentation. So I won't bore you too much with it, but hopefully it might jog your memory. And if you've got any questions, then yes, that's the main point of this session, is to answer those, hopefully. So yeah, just a little bit about myself first. I'm actually based in Somerset, which is nearly a couple of 100 miles from Falmouth, out east. But this is where I'm based, been based for a long time. And I've been a commercial photographer really since about 2003, 2004. I don't do very much commercial photography now, but I still do bits and pieces. And teaching really takes up the majority of my activity, as well as writing and working on my own projects, which hopefully you'll have had a little chance to look at through the galleries, featured galleries on Asia Photo, which it's been a real privilege to be part of, actually, and it's such a massive community. So yeah, it's really exciting for us to be part of that. But I've worked particularly with online learning, which really up until COVID was sort of something of a kind of a fairly niche part of education. And now online is really a very kind of mainstream way of learning. So the pandemic has been obviously devastating for so many people, but it's really kind of made this way of communicating much more normal. So I think we're kind of getting more and more people coming to the program now who are just very comfortable at learning in this way. So actually it's been kind of quite a good, from a teaching perspective, it's been kind of quite good, I think, for us and for the programs. Our team is very broad, and I won't go into kind of details here, but again, Claire's work, Georgia's work, and Michelle's work is viewable through your featured galleries. And I think it's really important to get a sense of who is working on the program, because that really does inform the kind of philosophy and the ethos of really everything on the program. Program really consists of the staff and the students, and all of that sort of coming together is really what makes the program what it is. And yeah, there's other points to see more student work as well, and graduate work, which I'd really encourage you to have a look at. I guess this is a sort of a real fundamental question, and I suppose why maybe quite a lot of you are kind of thinking about this now. You know, why do a program? Why do something as sort of full on, as expensive, and really as committed as a BA or an MA program? And people come with kind of quite different objectives and you know, aims and what they really want to get out of the program. Some people, for them, it's really about having a qualification, and particularly people who are kind of earlier or, you know, kind of mid-career, having that qualification is quite important, and it does open doors within the profession, but in other professions as well. But really, I think everybody's here for personal development. I think above all anything else, to really kind of increase the sophistication of their practice, to take it from something that might be good, you know, that might be kind of good at taking pictures, and have a certain specialism, and you know, a good level of confidence with photography. But actually, when it comes to making something that's a more kind of comprehensive, a more in-depth, and above all a more critical body of work, then that's often at the point where they think, I think I've kind of done as much self-learning as I can, or I've done enough sort of retreats or workshops or short courses, and I really need to focus on something that's going to be like much more intensive, full on, and ultimately, you know, as we see, you know, much more rewarding, I think, too. and importantly, the network, which I'll say a little bit about as well. And, you know, as I said, we have people from very broad range of backgrounds. And I think what's sort of most important is not actually always the ability, but really that willingness to participate, to be part of the network, to share ideas with peers, to support peers, and to really kind of grasp all opportunities really to learn, and yeah, just to sort of get involved. This is a kind of a real comparison, a breakdown of the MA and the MA and the BA top-up program, which I'm not going to say too much about. I mean, if we've got some questions about this, then we'll probably come back to this slide. And likewise, I'm not going to go into sort of too much depth about the course structure unless there are questions. But what I would say is both programs, currently you can start them at one of 3 points in the year. So study block 1 is the sort of fall, you know, the September, end of September entry point. Study block 2 is the end of January, and study block 3 is the beginning of June. So it's quite flexible in terms of when people start the program. But that also means that you are kind of learning on it, particularly in the case of the MA, for sort of 2 whole years. There is no kind of big summer break, summer recess. There is about a month between each module, and that's what we call the assessment period. So that's when we are assessing your work, and there will be meetings to give feedback on your assignments. But really, it is quite, in both programs, you know, they are quite intensive. It is pretty full on and fairly relentless. So I think that's the sort of main thing to bear in mind. The MA is 5 modules. The first 4 modules are 1 study block each. And then the final major project, which is really just a kind of a research module. So there's very little teaching on it as such. They'll have meetings with your supervisor and other kind of group meetings and guest lectures, but it's not specifically a taught module, and so there's a lot more autonomy. So whilst the sort of final major project is this quite serious sounding thing, it's actually quite a relief, I think, for students when they get to that point in the program, having worked very intensively with kind of quite directed learning in the first 4 modules, and then having, you know, more flexibility in that sort of final stage. As I said, it is quite intensive. So we kind of work on a weekly basis, and we release a topic, pretty much a topic each week. Sometimes they're sort of released in 2-week chunks. And what we're moving to is a pattern whereby we release all the content 6 weeks in advance. So, well, not 6 weeks in advance, but you'll have the module is 12 weeks, but it's split into 2 basically. So that kind of gives a little bit more flexibility now, and people are able to kind of really look ahead and sort of see what's going to be involved, what we're going to ask them to do. But typically, a topic is composed of pre-recorded lectures by the module leaders. So obviously that's myself in the first module. And there'll be some set readings, some set text that go with that. And then usually an activity. And that activity might be practical based. So we might give you a little assignment to go and do that week. It might be about a sort of a little piece of group work. And actually it might just be the activity might be contributing to a forum. And then at the end of the week, there will be typically a webinar, and that will either be with your online tutor, or that will be with a group of peers. Well, it'll be with a group of peers, but it may be with or without the online tutor facilitating that. And in the background of all of this, you are working on your own project. So the course it's almost like 2 things. You're doing your own project that you kind of choose, that you dictate what you're interested in and what you want to make a photography project about. And then there's also these sort of weekly, this weekly activity and these weekly tasks. And really what the point of the tasks are is to ask you to think about your practice, what your research project is, thinking about it in depth, but in relation to these topics, basically these themes that we explore week to week. So your practice is very much the sort of driving force of the program. Yes, it's quite prescribed week to week, but all of those tasks, all of those questions are asking you to reflect on your current practice, basically. So there may be some more questions about that, but I hope that makes some sense. What's kind of quite an active part of the program, and it actually really helps to sort of network us as well, because across the Topup and the MA, there are 9 cohorts at any one time. So when we have guest lectures, which are typically once a fortnight or once a week during the 12 taught weeks of each module, then that's really an opportunity for students across all of the modules to come together and to kind of have some really excellent lectures from other photographers and artists and people across the industry. So it's very exciting. I think that's when the course is really having these kind of external perspectives as well into it. And you know, they're great because we have people from all over the UK and Europe, but further afield as well. So they're really kind of quite exciting points, I think, our guest lectures. And nowadays, you know, most universities are doing online lectures with kind of guest speakers, and that's pretty much the norm now, of course. But we've been able to do it now for quite a long time. So we've also banked up a pretty extensive archive of guest speakers as well. So once you kind of join the course, you're kind of getting access to these talks on a regular basis, but you've also got access to our back catalogue of guest lectures as well, which is pretty massive. And these are a great way to sort of really get inspiration about your practice. This is a bit of a pie chart about the sort of range of activities that we get you to do. And really, I hope this makes sense that really half of your time at least should be spent on your research project. I won't go into too much more detail here. But yeah, I mean, maybe Stephen can say something about research, and because, you know, he's obviously right in that middle point of the program now, where he's kind of working on his independent research project. But really, there are certain themes and similarities kind of recur across students from year to year, but really each project is very different and very, very unique. And people are often kind of drawing on their professional backgrounds and their life experiences, because I guess like most people on the program are, you know, I don't know exactly what the average age is, but it's sort of typically between sort of 30 and 60. So people have had like pretty interesting lives already and done kind of lots of interesting things. So actually the research projects are very interesting, you know, and it's a real privilege for me to be kind of allowed into other people's lives and other people's interests really through their photography. And again, there are some links on the website to our graduate showcase, to our Instagram account, and to our landings exhibition. There's a lot of student work to look at, and I really, really would encourage anybody who's quite serious about thinking about the program to really spend like some time, you know, a good amount of time looking at student work. I think that's probably the most important thing to familiarize yourselves with, actually. I said about like the importance in terms of what we look for and what we like really about students. It really is about that willingness to participate. Just before lockdown, we managed to get this this sort of map feature live, which was great. Just at the point when people couldn't actually physically network with one another. This isn't quite as current as you know, it's constantly being updated. We don't update it. Students select to be elect rather to have a pin on the map marking their location. So as you can see, most people are in the UK, and we have people who are further afield but haven't elected to be on the map, which is obviously their prerogative. But you know, it is a truly global program, and we're obviously really keen to keep expanding that, because having that kind of those multiple perspectives on photography and on the world, frankly, really is what makes our student body as interesting and as exciting and as diverse as it is. And so, you know, you'll have a webinar and somebody might be showing some work about something that's very local to them, but then somebody who might be in Canada or Singapore might be kind of going, yeah, we've got a similar thing going on, down in my neighborhood as well. So it's this sort of real meeting, I think, of the local people working wherever they are in the world. Yes, there are some people in Cornwall and some people in Falmouth even, but the fact is we are all kind of working in isolation in our own little localities, wherever those are in the world. And, I'm here in rural Somerset, and but, we come together on this kind of global scale, which I think is really exciting. We do have points to meet up. This was taken back in March this year. This was the last time I was amongst a group of people this large. So it feels very sort of nostalgic to look back at this photograph now. But, our face-to-face events certainly will continue. I'm not entirely sure what 2021 will look like, but certainly we're hoping to have physical face-to-face before the end of 2021, and certainly throughout 2022. So we usually have 2 or 3 face-to-face events per year. One of those being in Falmouth, which is an opportunity to do some technical workshops and inductions, and we've got incredible facilities at Falmouth. But also we have a series of portfolio reviews and just some kind of other fun activities to do, basically. So it's it's a really exciting point in the year, I think, March for us. Here are a few more pictures from those face-to-face events. But also we go to other festivals. So we've been to Paris Photo, which I'm sure you're all familiar with a few times, and Krakow, and Amsterdam, Unseen Amsterdam, which is a fabulous event. And here are just some other points to get in touch with us. I would say that we've certainly thought about events actually in Tokyo specifically, but we currently I don't think have enough students in Asia to make it justifiable for us to all travel to that far. Obviously, the changes in the culture towards the climate emergency in the last couple of years has certainly made us kind of have some soul searching about face-to-face events. So I can't really say where our next face-to-face events will be over the next couple of years, but I do think it's more likely than not that we will either do most events in Europe, where people can kind of travel fairly from where the majority of our students are. Or it might be also that we think about doing smaller scale things in regions where we have staff. So, for instance, we do have staff who are based in Tokyo. So it might be that instead of, such as Gary here, he's based in Tokyo. So instead of kind of doing these kind of really large events where we have, a kind of a big number of people traveling across the world, it might be that we can kind of travel to where we know that there's quite a lot of students, so that actually collectively we're not actually having a massive impact. So these are sort of questions that we need to kind of get our heads around. But I know that there often are questions around, where's your next face-to-face event going to be? So I think with certainty, though, we can say it's going to be in Central Europe that the next ones will be. So I am going to keep this screen share going because it might be, I think we'll probably need to refer to some slides. But I think I've whittled on now. That was as brief as I could, but that was still 20 minutes. So hopefully we can add some more texture now with some of your questions. And sorry, just also, I didn't really kind of properly thank Stephen for the invitation to speak today, but also for us to feed into Asia Photo in as prominent way as we've been able to. It's quite a staggering array of portfolios there, which I had the chance to have a little skim through last night. But yeah, I'd certainly like to take the time to look at a few more over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, and I'm really pleased to see you guys here today. So yeah, thank you very much for having me.
All right, thank you, Jesse. All right, so I've activated the option for you to unmute, and you can ask any questions if you have any. Anyone, any questions?
I don't know if I can't see the chat box at this point, so I don't know if there's any questions from there. But how are you finding the course, Stephen?
Exciting, very good. Yes, have to redefine myself. I mean, the things that used to be shooting has changed quite a bit now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you want to? I don't know if everybody knows you here, but do you want to say a little bit about your particular research project?
Well, I'm now doing the hawker center project in Singapore, which is a post-COVID. So how they keep on, so-called, will do about their daily life, and lots of things to shoot for the next few months at least.
Mm.
Yeah. Sanjoy, Simon, any questions?
Your BA course, Bachelor of Arts, is 2 years, and sorry, that's 1 year, and Masters is 2 years, right? Is that the slide says like?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm just going to go, because I haven't said too much about that. So let me just go back to that slide, if that's all right. So the BA Top-Up program, and the Top-Up is a very important part of the title of the program. So it's a 1 year course, but it is only the fine, because like normally in the UK, a BA degree is 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Level 4, 5, and 6, as we say, HE4, HE5, HE6. So the Top-Up is just that final year of a BA program. So usually, I don't know. So I don't know where you're based and kind of what other opportunities there are. But in the UK, we have higher national diplomas and foundation in art degrees, which are the equivalent of those first 2 years of a bachelor's degree. But they're usually taught not at a university, but at a further education college. So Top-Up programs really allow people who've got higher national diplomas, not just in arts and design, but in all sorts of subjects, to top up their HND to get a full bachelor's degree, basically. So it is just that final year of the program. Okay. Now, our students on the Top-Up program are typically people who've got those qualifications, higher national diplomas, and they've got 240 credits, and that's a very straightforward process. You know, they apply to the course, they show the documentation from their previous courses. There'll be a you know, an application statement and a portfolio, and you know, that it's all very straightforward. But we do take people onto the Top-Up program who don't have those credits, but have been working within the industry, and it's very clear that they have got the same experience of those first 2 years of a degree program, basically. And so, yeah, actually on the Top-Up, it's roughly 50-50 in terms of the balance between people who've got those credits and people who are applying through accreditation of prior experiential learning, as it's called, or APEL. But it's quite a long-winded process to apply through APEL. I think it's great that we've got that option for people. but you know, typically people who will make a successful APEL application will have worked, you know, as a professional photographer for at least 5 years, probably more like 10 years. And as well as that, they probably will have been quite active within networks and groups, like yours, for instance, or it might be like the Royal Photographic Society in the UK, and have a kind of a bit of a track record of not just being able to you know, deliver photography to a competent level, but a sort of track record of sort of personal and professional development as well. And it's quite a detailed process, because we go through each of the modules on the first 2 years of our on-campus BA program, and we have to kind of tick off, if you like, the learning outcomes for each of the modules. So we do that process, but the applicants have to kind of map their experience with the learning outcomes on the degree. So it's not a kind of an impossibility at all. And as I said, quite a lot of people do that process very successfully. And it's really important because, you know, there'll be a lot of reasons why people may have not been to university, you know, 10, 20, even 30 years ago. But nevertheless, they managed to kind of have a successful career. But you know, they really want to kind of give their practice some, you know, some kind of greater credibility with that qualification, but actually they just really want to do it for themselves because, you know, they love the subject, and they want to study it, you know, and they want to be part of that network. So I'm really pleased that we've got that, you know, that the course exists, that the Topup exists, and yeah, we can share it. So I'm sorry, this really should have Topup written after it. So my apologies for that. We obviously have we have a number of courses on campus in Falmouth, but you can't study those online. And given where most of you are, you're very welcome to move to Cornwall and to go on those on-campus programs. And we offer 3 different BA photography related programs, but I'm not talking about those today. So yeah, it is just the final year of an undergraduate program that we offer online, basically. So I hope that's clear.
Any questions?
Yes, and it's a nice presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I want to ask one question, that if anybody wants to conduct the photography course, first he has to do BA, then MA.
No, that's not the case. It really depends on, you can do both courses, and we do offer the opportunity to, if people who do the BA Topup and then want to go on to the MA, I can't remember exactly what the agreement is, but there is a guarantee of a place on the MA for students who certainly get a 2-1. I think it might even be 2-2, but that certainly if you get a 2-1, you guaranteed a place onto the MA program. But no, they are, and there is also a discount on the MA if you've done the BA, sorry, there is a discount on the price of the MA if you do the BA. But I don't know exactly what that is off the top of my head. But no, they're 2 different programs. So I'm just really talking about both of those at this point. Stephen, who invited us onto Asia Photo Platform, is currently doing the MA. And at the moment, the MA is a much bigger program than the BA Topup. So yeah, we have a roughly 150 students at the moment on the MA program and about 50 on the BA Topup. So typically, you know, one of the entry requirements to the MA program is as it says here, you know, an undergraduate degree. Ideally, that would be in an art and design subject, so not necessarily photography. Quite a number of our MA students do have degrees in photography, but that isn't an expectation. It's generally a requirement of all master's programs that applicants have an undergraduate degree before doing a master's degree. But that doesn't have to be in the subject. It's really just so that there is some sort of evidence that that those sort of conventions, those academic conventions, can be sort of followed within an MA program, basically. So so no, they're two very different programs. You know, yes, and we've got some students who've done the BA top-up program and are currently working on the MA, and they're doing really well, actually, because, you know, they've had that whole year. They're doing really well on the MA because they've had that whole year to get used to this way of working, you know, to understand what the expectations are, to get into like a really good routine and sort of work pattern. But also, you know, there's a lot of people who have done the top up and that's as far as they want to go. Or it might be that they will come back to the MA a little bit later on, and that progression agreement, that sort of guarantee of a place on the MA, I think that stays open for 2 years. So I think, you know, we will see more people who've done the BA top up having a bit of time out and then coming back to the MA when they've kind of thought a little bit more about what they want to do on the MA, basically. So yeah.
Thank you.
No problems. I hope that's all clear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jesse, sorry, Sanjay here again. I have one more question. Like people like me who are actually the hobbyist and we are not directly into a professional photography. I mean, my profession is a chemical engineering and I'm working in the industry for the last 30 years. Okay. So how do I fit in with your course? Like, I mean, because I don't have a relevant background of BA of photography, what you were saying for the first 2 years, not done anything. But we are just practicing photography, participating in different competitions. I'm a member of RPS also, or PSA. So we are just like, I mean, it's a more of a hobby. It's not a very focused area where we are spending every day some time. Like probably over the weekend, we just do some photography, we study things on the internet, and that's how. And maybe at this age, I just have some time and just thinking like, why not to get something very structured course, get ourselves into that and do something. So what is your advice for people like us?
Well, I mean, I think in some respects, you're kind of very typical of a lot of our students. I mean, so I presume you've got a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, obviously not in the subject. So you're kind of already looking at the MA rather than the BA top-up program. So that's fairly straightforward. Assuming you know there's the level of quality to your work as well, and you can deliver a portfolio for application that's of a good standard, then you're already looking, as I said, at the MA. Yeah, I think I suppose the MA is not necessarily for professional photographers. I'm just going to scroll back to this slide actually, because I think it's quite important. You know, the idea of a professional photographer, I think, is quite is quite a difficult one to define. And so I suppose what's more important to us is the idea of somebody who is committed to photography, basically. You know, and I think actually if you are a professional photographer, you know, you are probably not doing very much photography at the weekends, you know, or in the evenings, unless you're working. You know, the hobbyists, or the word I'm going to use, which is slightly used quite derogatory typically, but I don't think it's a derogatory term. I think it's a really positive term, which is amateur, which actually, means somebody who is somebody who loves the subject, but is also obliged to the subject as well, and so they are doing it frankly because they are passionate about the subject. So that is what's the most important thing, really. You will already have subjects that you're interested in taking pictures of. I imagine you're not taking pictures of different things every single week or whatever, so you will already have subjects and themes that you might want to explore in some greater depth. But I think what's really important is whether there is a desire there to use photography to really explore a subject in some sort of greater depth, basically. And it's not just about kind of making better photographs, but it's making pictures that will come together and tell a story, pictures that will speak about a theme, or something that's important in the world. I think just kind of pick up on Stephen's work. He's photographing these hawker centers in Singapore, and so on the surface of that, well, you could say, well, it's just sort of street photography. It's just sort of observing people in what is a very kind of normal part of the culture in Singapore and Asia more broadly. But essentially, there's not really anything that remarkable about that on the surface. But actually, when you start to do it more often, and you're starting, when you're doing it every week, you're starting to notice things. You're starting to, your observation is becoming more acute and sharper. But actually, you're starting to realize that these hawker centers and everybody who's there is actually talking about, it's not about food, and it's not just about street culture, it's about multiculturalism, it's about migration. And so it's that sort of willingness to start a subject that you might be kind of very familiar with, but just go, like, let's see what else this subject relates to. And so that kind of real desire to use photography as a tool of investigation is really important. And I think, yeah, there's people who use photography as amateurs, as just, if you just want to kind of take pictures of your family and your kids, or pictures of sort of pretty sunsets to like hang on your wall, then the course isn't really going to give very much to you, I don't think. But actually, if you're really interested in the idea of the family, and you're interested in stereotypes around family life, or you're interested in, if you're interested in, trying to get a better understanding of how family life is sort of represented, then doing a course like this, that's going to be like very involved, very, very kind of very challenging intellectually, as well as, challenging on your time. And I mentioned about the sort of time commitment in the slides. Then I guess that's how you might fit into the course, basically. So I think, yeah, we have people who are practicing photographers who are squeezing the course into a sort of professional working life as a freelancer or running a studio. I mean, those guys do very well because they're generally, they've generally got like a good level of skill. But actually, it's probably more the hobbyists who have a bit more time on their hands, you know, who are actually really happy to spend a couple of hours or an hour, not a couple of hours every evening, but, you know, a couple of nights a week, spending a couple of hours on the course, and, you know, probably half of their weekend on the course if they are working full time, and who are just kind of really happy to do that, you know, then those people do really well, I think, on the program. And yeah, it's certainly not the case, and we're not seeing that the people who also kind of end up with the highest marks are professional photographers, actually. It's really about the people who invest the most sort of time into their research project, who kind of join the webinars, who get involved in the fora, because, you know, they just progress, I guess, more faster. So it is also down to how much time you've got, and that's a really important to bear in mind. Yeah, I mean, the MA is 20 hours a week roughly, but I don't know, what's your experience of that, Stephen? Would you say it takes about 20 hours, or is that a bit of an underestimation?
I'm a very bad student, so I don't spend that much hours. But I spend more time taking pictures. I actually went to the hawker center almost every morning for 1 hour at least. But it's a very interesting course. It actually made me to redefine myself and to relook what I've done in the past, and a lot of changes have taken place in my style of photography. Very different now.
And I think, but you know, it is important that, like, when you're going and you're spending an hour at the hawker center, for instance, that is part of those 20 hours a week, you know. So if you're doing that 5 or 7 times a week, that's a quarter of that time is, you know, we don't just want you sitting in front of a computer all the time. You know, we want you to be out and about and shooting. So yeah, as I sort of said in this, I kind of make a real point of stressing the time commitment, because I think it can be a little bit downplayed from time to time. But yeah, you know, if you're out kind of shooting, Stephen, then, you know, that is absolutely part of those 20 hours a week.
And what happened was I was actually going down for my breakfast. So I was taking pictures while taking my breakfast anyway. So yeah, it's part of my life. Yeah.
Well, being able to multitask is extremely important.
No problem. Thank you so much, Jesse. I think that answers my question also. Thank you so much.
Are you interested in doing the MA then, Sanjoy?
No, I've not decided. I'm a bit confused because I'm full-time working in the oil and gas fields. So it's very hard to get the time out. And it's a very stressful job, you know, with the low oil price, the things are a bit turbulent these days. But I'm almost verging to my retirement within the next couple of years. So then I was thinking that how to keep myself engaged, because I don't want to be in the oil and gas line anymore. So I would like to pursue with my hobbies, like music and photography. So that's the whole idea. I'm just checking like what I can do. Maybe start the college days back again.
Your research project can actually be based around where you're working and what you're doing actually. So if you're in the oil and chemical industry, I'm sure there's a lot of environmental issues or the workers behind the scene. So we try to encompass what we have around ourselves. Yeah, make it as a part of a research project so that you don't have to do something very different and very far away. So for myself, hawker center is just next to my house. That facilitates me in the research.
Yeah, true. No, I get that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No worries. I think quite a lot of people do the MA because they are actually coming up towards that point of retirement, or because they want to have a career change, and so they might start the program before they've quit their work, basically, because it kind of helps with that transition. But then also we get people who have just they've retired, they've got, you know, great amounts of time on their hands, or, you know, they've kind of able to scale back their work, so they're only working, you know, maybe 3 or 4 days a week, so they've got a bit more time back. But yeah, I think that's a really important point and that Stephen made, which which I'm a great advocate for. Really, I think a lot of people kind of think, oh, if I do a photography project, I've got to go somewhere. It's got to be, it's got to be exciting and exotic, and I think that idea is just very, very old fashioned, really.
Very passe. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, and I just think, well, right now we can't travel in the same way that we could anyway. So it's really forced us to look at what's around us. But I have always made, I've done a bit of traveling and been paid to do it, and that's been lovely. But the vast majority of the pictures that I've made have been like on my doorstep, more or less, very, very close to home. And I do think that actually by looking at these sort of very local things, it's a way of putting in the context of this program where, we are all connected with people, who are in those kind of exotic places that we might like to go to. Then we actually understand what our work is about, I think, by seeing our peers, basically. So yeah, you can absolutely combine what you're shooting with where you are. And I mentioned the family because, a lot of our students are it's interesting because your sort of typical undergraduates on an on-campus course are, 19, 20, 21. And so they have a very different sort of set of concerns. Whereas a lot of our students are new parents or who have children. And so they might be fitting the course around childcare. And so the family and children is a very common theme of subjects that our students look at, basically, because they have to, they cannot kind of do the course with, they don't have 20 hours a week by themselves, so yeah, basically, thanks for making that point, Stephen, that, you can absolutely combine your research project with your work and your life, basically. Are there any sort of final questions?
I think the time difference is an issue here. Some people are probably working now, actually. Some of them actually gonna get back to work.
Do feel free to email me if you've got any other questions. I can also kind of put you in touch with my colleagues who can go into more detail about some of the nuances in the applications and the fees and so on. But yeah, thank you very much again for having us, and for kind of giving us the kind of platform within Asia Photo. So I really appreciate your efforts there, Stephen, and that's very generous of you. And yeah, thank you for joining us this evening, this afternoon, wherever you are. All right. Well, listen, I'll catch you soon, Stephen. And thank you very much for joining, everybody. And nice to meet you. And thank you for your questions.
Right. Cheers.
All right. Cheerio.